this is the article we have just started to discuss. This is about AUKUS. Now, keywords. If you see, China's rising military power. China's rising military power. So that's one term we can focus upon. India have one nuclear submarine. China have around 12. Yes. So there is an imbalance or asymmetry between Chinese and Indian nuclear powers. And also it is very clear that India is making sure that AUKUS is not eroding the Quad. This point also has been touched. So it all boils down to the same 2 points, AUKUS versus Quad. Because in international relations, the entire discussion is about strategic autonomy or importance for that particular country. What am I getting out of the entire deal? Next. Again, keyword inculcation. If you see the paragraph, more or less the same keywords have been discussed yesterday. Maritime security, free open trade, healthcare, critical technology, or supply chains. So all these things tell us what? That Quad or Indian Ocean peace is for promotion of welfare of everyone involved, not only a particular country. Whereas South China Sea, if you see, that is about expansionist policies. Next. Next. Strategic autonomy. What is strategic autonomy? Strategic autonomy means our ability to deal with things in our own way. So we have bilateral trades, India, Australia, India, Japan, India, US, India, China. So all these are bilateral, trilateral. Yes, AUKUS is trilateral, RIG is trilateral, or India, Australia, Japan talking is trilateral. So there are trilateral groupings, and there is multilateral groupings like Quad. So what is India doing? India is using bilateral, trilateral, multilateral to create a multipolar world and free and open trade for all. So that is India's always. That is always India's objective. So let's say if India have 20 nuclear submarines and India becomes a superpower, do you think India will go on to occupy Sri Lanka and other countries? No, that is never in our DNA, at least the soft power perspective, right? So nobody is actually worried about India's rise except one country, that is China. Because China knows if India is growing as much as China is doing, then everybody will start investing in India, or in not only money wise, in every other perspective. So to avoid all these things, to avoid competition, China is trying to create instability as much as possible. Clear? Next. What happens because of the nuclear pact, the military pact? The nuclear technology transfer is happening, and it is creating a very strong deterrent against China. Yes. So how can India take advantage of this situation? Yesterday we discussed talk to France and other countries. At the same time, we have to be very clear that India-US relations are getting as close as possible. USA has declared India as one of the closest allies ever, but the technology transfer is not happening. As I told you, the threat is Pakistan might nuclearize Pakistan more. Sorry, China might nuclearize Pakistan more, or nuclear escalation might happen if India is getting the nuclear weapons. So America is saying, why should you have the weapons? As long as your area is protected anyhow, you don't have to worry about it. Yes or no? So that's point number 1. Next. So this gives an opportunity for everybody to relook at bilateral relations. When AUKUS is happening, India and France bilateral ties can get stronger. Yes, so that's one way to look at the things. Among all these things, as I told you, when we have the breathing space, what should we do? Atmanirbhar Bharat. Yes or no? Atmanirbhar Bharat. So you have breathing space, you have your friends working for you, you should get the technology, you should get the money. If America is not nuclear weapons, because nation transfer money, or you can give tax, or you can push France to give us contracts. So there are multiple ways diplomacy will work. Or you can also impose sanctions on Pakistan and Afghanistan. Yes or no? See, I can grow more peacefully if Pakistan and Afghanistan is not a headache for India. Right? So there are multiple ways to leverage strategic autonomy, and that is the beauty of strategic autonomy. You have to be friends with everyone, and nobody is your enemy. Even China is not our enemy, right? Only we have issues with China. So when I was reading this article, I was just thinking about just yesterday's discussion and the same to same points. Even the same is with the COVAX editorial. Yes, soft power Maitri, vaccine Maitri. We have given vaccines to our immediate neighbors, but unfortunately, because of our own domestic obligations, we could not give vaccines. But what can India do? India is leading the vaccine equity program. That means we are able to send more vaccines to developing nations or least developed nations. So he has given some empirical data in this particular area. See Africa, how bad the situation in Africa is. So none of us are safe till all of us are safe. So the same logic, if Africa is not getting vaccination properly, what will happen? Mutations might take place, which will be a threat to the entire COVID program. Again, we cannot go for the first kind of lockdowns, right? So that is exactly what is saying. As long as vaccine inequity prevails, the virus will continue to circulate. So here are two technical terms. See, yesterday our discussion was very general. Now we are throwing keywords: vaccine equity and vaccine inequality. So if you can inculcate those two things in your vocabulary, your answers will be more formal and professional. India's vaccine Maitri is a weapon against the vaccine inequality, which will create a safe place for everyone, which is nothing but our ethos of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Yes or no? So that is how you take keywords from newspapers and enhance your answers and your thought process also. So next time when someone asks you to tell what is vaccine Maitri or why we need to invest in vaccination program for the rest of the world, you will throw the respective keywords. When you use keywords, what will happen? Automatically articulation becomes very easy. Right. And also we have to see the vaccine inequalities. While the world is going for vaccine booster doses, still there are developing countries which are looking for the first dose of vaccinations. So that shows how deeply divided the world is. So no. Luckily, India had the capability to produce vaccinations, or else we would have been totally dependent on some other nations like Bangladesh or Bhutan now is dependent. That would have been a huge problem. Clear? Yes. Now, what counts is seldom counted. This is a really interesting article. How many of you haven't read? Haven't? Try to read. Like it will hardly take 5 minutes. Online people also, if you haven't read that particular article, what counts? This one, what counts is seldom counted. If you haven't read this article, please try to read it. Try to identify the keywords, what he's trying to say. If you have already read it, try to find examples or some context.
Concerning about the castes and minorities.
Summary of the entire article.
The author says that census.
Why the rest of you read?
Census is not a relevant, currently not a relevant this thing as it was in 1891 or in the 1900s, because back then there were no other data collection methods. And additionally, what is happening is today a lot of ministries are doing their own surveys by collecting relevant socio-economic data. So because of which caste, a huge exercise we are doing, but it is still underutilized. That's one thing, and also another point about the time lag which happens. That 2011 census was done, but certain things were released in 2016, 2017, like migration data was released in 2017. The time lag aspect, and also that how politicians would try to interfere in the publication of this data, because that will lead to particular political demands, let's say in reservations or things like that. Probably also that I think the general category population will be lesser than what it was assumed 1 or 2 decades back. This might lead to demands like increasing of 50% cap of reservation. So, 3 or 4 points like this, and he also says if such a big exercise we can do it digitally, that will be more efficient in collection of data.
So what is this discussion about identification and attributes? It talks about identification, right?
Yes.
So what do you mean by identification?
There is also a divide in terms of taking data from individual and from the household. That is something. And
identification and attribute. Identity is something about gender
Caste
or
and religion.
caste religion. That is about identification. Attributes are something like how much, for example, how much FMCG foods do they consume, or what kind of content do they want. So
It's like educational and professions.
profession and
Done with the entire article?
Yes.
Okay.
even education qualifications.
Oh.
He also argues that the giving using these surveys for religion identification and caste identification, which the current discussion is going on, is a little regressive, while collecting data about education qualification and making policies based on them will be much progressive. So he's saying that the census is brought down to simply number of people that is counted rather than an efficient tool or instrument which can be leveraged very efficiently as in the policy making.
identification and attribution is at a fundamental level when we identify a particular numeric data of a particular group. What is the conclusion you take out of it? Like, not conclusion, but what is the interpretation you take out of it? That requires a lot of scientific approach in terms.
The data collected is not flowing to other departments. There are so many ministries which are involved in governance, and the data is remaining with one office. If that disseminates to other offices, then again that would be very useful in policy making.
Okay. Yes. So then, yes, all of you. Anyone still reading? Okay. Online people. So this article is about, first of all, data-driven policy making. So in GS paper 2 governance, we will use this article's points as data-driven policy making, that especially in way forward. So whenever you write an answer, you write introduction, body, conclusion, or in place of conclusion, you write something called as way forward. So what is the way forward? That means from now onwards, how are we going to deal with this particular data? What is the purpose of census? Census was created by Britishers or used by Britishers, not with altruistic motives. They had their own data. What gets measured gets improved. Yes or no? What gets measured gets improved. Only when I know how much data is there on a particular thing, I will use that particular data. Now, if you see this article very closely, who are the stakeholders? Who are the stakeholders? Democracy at large. Yes. Groups, various groups, administration, and ease of administration. Now, the problem is we are living in a perceived reality. What is perceived reality? In 1971 census, this number of OBC, SC, ST people are there, or this number of poor are there, this number of migrants are there. So even now, the most recent data we use for migrant labor is census 2011, right? And all this data is supposed to do what? Not fill some book. Okay, governments, it's not a duty, right? It's a means to an end. What is the means? The more data I have, the better my policy formulation will be. Government perspective, touching all these things will create a lot of unnecessary headaches. Okay, let's say for example, if I tell you how many number of people are there in a particular caste, within a caste there are subcastes. Yes, so if I release the data hypothetically, that might lead to unnecessary discussions which I don't want to create right now. Yes or no? Collectively, all of us are assuming there is a X community or a X caste or a X group. Okay, within X there are subgroups X1, X2, X3. We don't know the reality. In theory, we are assuming X are weak. But if someone comes and shows, you know, X2, X3 are very, very powerful, they are rich, they are educated and everything, they actually don't belong to X. Then how do I remove them from X reservation criteria? Yes or no? So, see, you get the idea, right? Because of X2 and X3, the entire X group is voting for me. But if I want to help X and X1, which are actually weak, okay, if I cut off X2, X3, I might lose the votes. So unless, I mean, all these are creative problems. All these are very energy consuming processes. So to avoid all such kind of things, simply what government is trying to do is, it is not so willing to give up the data. Let people be in dark. Let things are working. Yes or no? As long as it's not broken, I don't have to repair it. You know, what is Jugaad? The nation of Jugaad, right? India is a land of Jugaad. I will put brown tape first. If brown tape is not working, then I will go for MSeal. If MSeal is also not working, then probably I will think of replacing it. There also first I will ask for second part, third hand. Then if nothing else is working, then I will go and purchase the new thing. In the same way, administration is also more or less run in the same way. Okay. Now, two important things: ascribed status. Ascribed identities. Okay. Caste is ascribed. Ascribed means something that is given to you on birth. For example, if you are a Dalit by birth, okay, no matter what you do, that status is never revoked. You can make 100 crores per annum, you can do PhD, you can do, you know, nuclear science, whatever you are doing, still that status is ascribed to you. It cannot be removed. So the beauty of that concept is the transformation from one stage to another stage is stopped by birth itself. You are born in a particular community or a particular religion, ascribed. You cannot do something and you become something else. Okay, so the power of ascribed nature is it will measure who you are by the basis of your birth, and that is the most basic primitive way of counting someone. Then learned capabilities. What are learned capabilities? Education. How many people have done PG in a particular community? If more and more people are doing MBA or MA or PG in a particular community, can we call that community as an empowered community? In a way, yes. But that has to be linked with employment data. Yes or no? So in that way, counting the achieved identities are capable attributes, okay, are tangible endowments for the nation itself. Right? So that's point number one. Next. Associating any adversity with an ascribed identity at best helps focus on the intervention. But the effort should be on addressing the adversity, irrespective of the identity. What does it mean? It's a bit complicated, but it's very simple if you think about it. Are a particular community, ex-community members are poor, are all poor or ex-community members? Normally we think poor belong to ex-community, thieves belong to this community. Yes or no? We find some traits. If they have the traits, you belong to a particular community. I mean, that's the stereotyping we usually come to a conclusion. But because they belong to a particular community, they are not empowered, they don't have access to education, health and all those things. That is why they are behaving like this. Because of who they are, the outcome is this, not the other way around. Yes or no? So that is what he is talking about, this particular phenomena. For example, malnourishment, not only thievery and all those things. You can take malnourishment, child marriages. Child marriages is not a custom of ex-community. Ex-community is going for child marriages because of lack of education. You get the idea? So in that one paragraph, he beautifully summarized a lot of problems in India, that is associating adversities with ascribed identities, okay, will help to intervene. That means more or less, if you throw a stone on a particular community, probably you can solve one problem. Let's say literacy. I have taken literacy as a tool. Okay, almost all the ex-community members are illiterate. Okay, then I'm actually solving some problem. But is it true? I'm just getting lucky. Yes or no? Because majority are illiterates. Yes, but the other way is actually true. Because they don't have access to all those things, my focus should be on empowering them rather than thinking in a stereotypical fashions. Next, what about this paragraph? So you cannot write like that unless you have a very deep, clear understanding of Indian society. Or to put three beautiful things in three different paragraphs and meaning all the problems. I mean, literally you're touching 90% of communities in the countries. In fact, many make the fallacy of association leading to causation. And that leads them to conclude that adversity, discrimination as associated with the ascribed attributes are largely due to the attributes themselves. Yes, I hope you understand. No? Yes. Now you say yes, sir. After a week, if I ask you, all of you should be able to tell. Now, fallacy of association. Fallacy of association means I'm making the mistake of associating, right? That causation that leads them to conclude that adversity with the ascribed attributes. Okay, that means ascribed. Again, ascribed means something that is given to you. You did not choose it. You belong to a particular community or something like that. You have certain traits, and because of those traits, you are behaving like this. But causation is just an outcome. But actually, what should we focus upon? The reasons behind the causation. How or why a particular thing is coming out. For example, if you take minorities, you might be thinking all minorities prefer to stay in a similar locality. That is causation. Yeah, ghettoization. Ghettoization is a causation. Cause. That means, see, normally what in this particular case, let's say Muslims try to stay in a particular area of a town, all of them in one place. Okay, the cause is different, but what do we think? We think it as an attribute. That means all Muslims prefer to stay in one place. Okay, it's an outcome, it's a symptom, but what did we convert it into? It's an attribute. Okay, Muslims are like that, they want to stay in one particular locality, they don't want to mingle with everyone else. But the truth is, after let's say Godhra riots and other riots, okay, ghettoization has happened. That means strength in numbers. If all of us stay in one particular area, if there is a threat from elsewhere, okay, we can defend that particular locality. So it's an outcome of earlier attacks, causation, not the attribute itself. You understood? So like this, you can take 10,000 different examples from Indian societies. Okay, and it's not about Muslims or Hindus. It's about the cultural settings. We automatically find some traits and we attribute them to people. Okay, you belong to that particular region. You belong to that particular community. You have this particular trait. We have that stereotyping, and we think that is a attribute, but it's a cause. We are behaving because of a particular reason. Yes or no? For example, if you take the concept of agraharas, yes, it's an attribute or a causation.
It's a causation.
Why?
Because in olden days, the kings used to give them the particular place or as a gift or something, and
and also other socio-cultural practices like hygiene standards. For example, I am educated. I try to maintain a particular hygiene standard. Okay, what we call as muddy in the sense. Yes, so that's a hygiene practice. Later, it has been misused and abused and all those things. But the very intention of creating that practice is to create hygiene in kitchen, because back then they have realized germs and all these things. Without naming them as germs, they identified without unhealthy food leads to health issues. In the same way, when someone dies, okay, you are not supposed to go to any relatives' homes for 14 days. Back then, communal diseases were very high. Probably they didn't realize why they were keeping, or some intelligent fellow figured it out. But if I tell you, germs and all those things during COVID protocol also, we didn't follow. But if I put some religious context, I use it the fear of God and religion to put scientific principles in the same concept. After relative's death or someone in the family, you are not supposed to go there for 14 days. So it's like quarantine. Yes or no? But later it is purely thought as a cultural practice. Yes or no? We actually did not follow it in heart disease. But back then, I don't know whether it because of a heart stroke or cholera, TB, malaria, or some other diseases. For all six, one problem, one solution, quarantine. So instead of calling it as quarantine, we called it as a religious practice. But concept is same. So causations are different from attributes. So then later, when we made it into an attribute without realizing that it is a causation, we became rigid. We, in the sense, the certain communities become extremely rigid. Okay, you have to do the things like exactly only. You must remember that cat and the temple priest example, right? When a temple priest was praying, a cat was disturbing him. He used to tie the cat, okay, and do the prayer. Later on, all his disciples, they also found different cats and started tying to the pillars and did puja. For him, it was an inconvenience. Later, it became an attribute. Yes or no? You get the examples, right? Like you can find so many examples. So on the whole, count and characteristics are equally important, but the characteristics that are modifiable, that holds the key. I have to identify the traits which can be modified. That is where the so ultimate motive is to identify all the groups, not for vote banking and other things, but to empower them. Who is weak in education? Who is weak in entrepreneurship? Who is weak in accessing resources? Who do not have land? Yes, so such things should be identified by the caste census and other census, and it can be made more efficient. Okay, next. The same way, census should be definitely digitized, because you see, we are living in 21st century where everything is real time. Yes or no? The more real-time data we have, the more accurately we can make policies. We cannot use a decade-old policies because technology is evolving so rapidly and people's incomes are changing drastically. Yes. So in 2011, Uber, Ola, and all these things were not there. In 2016 to 2020, Uber boom has happened. Collapse has also happened equally quickly. So according to the changes, we have to modify. Let's say government is pushing electric vehicles. lakhs and lakhs of people are in the mechanic business. If everybody is moving towards electricity or electric vehicles, what is happening to the IC mechanics? Slowly we have to identify and shift them to the electric vehicle departments. Skilling, upskilling, and all these things are required. Yes or no? So, and at real time, the more that we have, the more we can frame policies. Clear? So it's a good article to understand how data can help the society and how cultures and societies are also formed because of data. For example, tomorrow I came to know I belong to X1 community. Okay, there are so many people like me. Suddenly consolidations will happen. Right? Clear? And it's not a rocket science. The only thing that is needed is political will. If there is a will, there can be a way. Yes or no? Occasionally, answer writing, very rarely. I mean, like once in a blue moon kind of thing, you can definitely use that. Or you can simplify that, right? Like we usually make the mistake of linking association with cause. Right? Any questions on this particular article? You have to identify the stakeholders. Governments are always not willing to give up the data, but a democracy will grow when there are more data reports. And second thing, when departments find out data, departments will find what they want to find. Yes or no? Not with altruistic motives. If I want to show that there are no Safai Karamcharis, I will create a report which will suggest there are less Safai Karamcharis. Okay, but if we go for census, we cannot hide such kind of data. And see, data enumeration is not an easy thing. There are so many subcastes. Not everybody is being equally registered. For example, if whenever a census comes, Hindi is the highest spoken language. But so many dialects are not even registered, but that everything is thrown under Hindi. Automatically, Hindi becomes the superior language. But in reality, if you go to every 200 kilometers, there is a new dialect. In Himachal Pradesh, there is Pahadi, Marathi, Punjabi, Bhojpuri, Gujarati. There are so many dialects within the dialects. In Telugu itself, we have 3 or 4 dialects. Yes or no? Kosa, Rayalaseema, Andhra. Yes. Telangana is the dialect of Telugu. Everybody have their own understanding. Clear? Yes. Okay. Swooping down on algorithms. Why is this article important? Okay. See, recently China have done some modifications. They stopped allowing the online games, online school, online classes for the children. Yes, e-commerce domination. Then it has even banned some online programs, apps, educational apps. So even the entertainment apps like TikTok, not TikTok is banned, but what you are putting on TikTok or how the algorithms are working for them. So all these things China is trying to control very heavily. First of all, what is the threat of algorithms to democracy?
Controls the behavior.
That only particular data is circulated and it's reached to the public.
Only a particular amount of data is circulated because of algorithms.
Yeah, like in this they mentioned that due to algorithms, the users are forced to see what is coming in the algorithm, but they don't have a choice to see what they want to do. So whatever the message they want, they get circulated.
Algorithms do that.
nanoscope of hate for someone, the algorithms can amplify that and can make it too big.
Okay. Which one that which one?
Social media.
Okay. Like how social media companies are, or how much time are we spending on social media? That one. Okay. So what is the threat of algorithms to democracy, or why? What is the threat from social media companies to democracy? That is a very important question that we should be debating. Like, why China is cracking down on the social media companies? Yes, and what is a threat to democracy from social media? Because if you took GS paper 2, there is a term called as social media or media. Then you have internal security. Media as a threat to democracy. Biased media is a threat to democracy is an essay topic. So why not social media is a threat to democracy? So let's say, as she was mentioning, let's say I'm scrolling through my Google now, or Google photos. Okay, a particular heroine or hero's photo was there. I stopped for 3 seconds more than I used to stop. From the next time onwards, Google will show me that particular hero or heroine's activity even more. Yes, that 3 seconds was more than enough for Google to understand, okay, he is interested in him, that particular cricketer or heroine. Then automatically what will happen? Reinforcement. Yes or no? Occasionally they will show that too, very smartly. Out of every first in the interval is very huge in the first initial days. Like every 10 feet, 11th feet will be that photo. Later on, 6th, 5th. Then automatically, now that you have reinforced, the algorithm knows you even better. Okay. Now, how is that a threat to democracy? Algorithms has the potential to create echo chambers. Algorithms have the potential to create echo chambers. What is echo chamber?
They get only what they
I want to listen. Yes or no? If you are reading what everybody is reading, then you will only know what everybody knows. For example, as she was mentioning, I hate a particular political party, or I hate a particular person. Then everybody who hates him will be, or their timelines will be suggested in my Twitter or my Facebook feeds, or YouTube recommendations will also be in the similar lines. See, and again, please remember, the algorithm is not tailor suited to promote hate. The algorithm is tailor suited to promote what you like.
It's to keep you most of the time.
It's to keep you occupied, least amount of friction. Okay, so what I like is hate, what I like is anger, and what I like is people who are angry and people who hate the same person. So then all of us will become association. Yes or no? Then slowly, see again, if you see the Twitter channels also, there will be few influencers. Let's say there is Prime Minister Modi. Okay, he follows few people, very less number of people. Okay, these people are called as influencers. Okay, and these influencers have millions of followers. He does not do anything. Okay, these influencers are the one who will do all the work in actuality. So then it becomes a bubble. Yes or no? So this bubble is very carefully curated and protected, not only by people but by algorithm. The same is for Mr. Rahul Gandhi. He will have his own bubble. Congress party lovers, BJP lovers. What will happen? Both of them won't even have a bridge. Why? This reinforcement is so strong by the social media companies that I hate even to listen to the other side. So that is called as echo chamber. Okay, and echo chambers are created for marketing. Yes or no? Echo chambers are created for marketing. I can use it for marketing hate or a Nokia phone. It doesn't matter. Yes. For example, OnePlus ecosystem. What happens in OnePlus ecosystem are Apple fans, Samsung fans, Apple fans. You see, Apple fans are very crazy, right? There is no difference between 12 and 13. Still, you don't know. Yes or no? Like, you understand? OnePlus people will say Apple is a fraud, or OnePlus is very good. Nothing like OnePlus. Never settle. Yes. So same with Samsung people. Sorry. Nothing like anything. Yes, exactly. We don't know what it means. So no, what I'm trying to tell you is algorithms are not created for any specific purposes. Its only intention is to promote what you like and keep you glued to the same topic again and again. But unfortunately, some social media companies or platforms have the capacity to topple governments overnight. Yes or no? Or to create law and order issues in the society. If you see the recent trends everywhere, riots, organizations, protests are done only in social media. Yes or no? So that is why the entire toolkit drama was happening. Yes or no? For a few days, the entire right wing learned a new word, toolkit. Whatever you do, it's a toolkit. Okay, you get the concept, right? WhatsApp. Yes. So the algorithms will reinforce you. You will trickle it down through WhatsApp. But the problem is law and order can be damaged. Bias in voters. We have seen the USA elections being heavily manipulated by the Russian hackers. So social media companies have the power to topple governments to change the outcomes in the democracy, which is not at all a good thing in democracy. People should have the choice to see whatever is happening, not only one-sided versions. Okay. Now, my simple question is this: is it the problem of people or algorithm? Why both?
Both of them are playing.
See, again, as I told you, if let's say you like Deepika Padukone, okay, 24/7 Google will be showing you what is Deepika doing, what is happening with Ranveer. They are having tea, okay. Like, you get a Twitter feed, a WhatsApp message, everything you live is about Bollywood heroine, something like that. Are you a threat to a society? So what did algorithm do? You like her and it is only giving you what you want. Yes. What you realize, I'm married now. Okay. So or she is married. Enough is enough. Okay. So what will happen? Breakup, right? Technical online breakup has happened. So you no longer follow Deepika and you don't know what is happening in her life. You moved on. So did algorithm change? It's still there. Tomorrow you go and show interest, it will come back with the same force to keep you glued. Okay. So who changed? Algorithm or you? Yes. So in the same way, if someone is promoting hate, okay, I need to have a line till how much I can take all this nonsense. Okay. And the beauty is I cannot bring Tipu Sultan or all the Mughals into the court. Yes or no? If I can bring Aurangzeb, I will bring him, convict him, and hang him. Will that satisfy people? No, right? I cannot do that. The historical injustices cannot be whitewashed. At the same time, cannot bring any justice. What can bring justice to the people? How you are empowering them in 21st century, in 2021? If something is whitewashed, bring it out. Okay, if someone did a wrong thing, okay, he did a wrong thing. Okay, that's that. We need not glorify him. At the same time, we came to know who he is in reality. Yes, but whitewashing black, or all these things will become too much for the democracy. You get my point, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is China has realized this more than anyone because Chinese government have this insecurity feeling. Chinese government is
They keep everyone in
surveillance because China's government is a dictatorial government more or less, though it's not a democracy, right? And they take pride in that. So they want to make sure that we should not create a dragon within all those dragons which are already existing, which will topple them. Tomorrow there should not be a social media company which will promote, democracy, and there is a revolution for democracy in China. That is the biggest fear of Chinese government. One day I will wake up and people will start screaming for vote for democracy. Yes or no? So to avoid all such things, I should not give too much power to anyone. What about democracies? Can India do the same?
They kept some restrictions in the recent IT,
Right? But
but
see,
only a few restrictions,
hmm.
like grievance redressal. Some
So all those are essential. Yes. You're saying? Unless and until it turns into sedition, there should not be any restrictions on the social media companies. But it's nobody's case to argue that there should not be a regulation on social media companies. Full freedom should not be given to social media companies. Let's say there is an inside deal. For example, Congress and Twitter and Facebook have talked to each other. 2024 elections, you tweak your algorithms so that Congress will come into power. Okay, and you can do whatever you want to. That is a threat to democracy. So social media companies should not have too much power that they have a deal with opposition party, and at the same time they should not be so pacified that they should deal with the existing governments. You promote BJP in 2024 elections, or you will not do business in India. That is also wrong. Yes or no? Both are equally threats to democracy. So algorithms which are promoting hate, patriarchy, crimes, porn, and all these things should be totally be regulated. Rest of the algorithm should be left alone. So somebody should be supervising on the algorithms. Yes. So that's a very important thing we need to understand from the China, because China is the first country which is actually heavily going towards this algorithmic amendments. It has realized, because it has lot to lose than any other country in the world. Most of them are democracies, are either too small, but China is too big to fail, and China's fall should not come from its own social media platforms. Yes. Yes or no? Last two paragraphs actually sum it up. India must fastly resolve the legal and social ills of algorithmic decision making. So there was a Microsoft artificial bot which was created few years ago. So it was supposed to learn how people think from social media. Within a week or so, that algorithm become racist. We thought so much racism to the algorithm that algorithm understood, by the moment you show it some black person's photograph, it will use the associated words like robbery, gun, thug. Yes, so automatically it become people has converted into it a racist algorithm. So in the same way, if algorithms in India can be casteist, associations can be taught. So all these stereotypes will be taught to algorithms. So, and again, things are changing very rapidly. Algorithms are getting stronger, better, and more useful. Right? Any other threats from algorithms? Are algorithms good for the society? Facial recognition, that is an algorithm, right? It will improve security or weaken security? It will improve security. Yes. Taxation algorithms. Income tax portal. Income tax portal will be AI dominated. It will be beneficial to society. And if a person is not paying income tax but is going for foreign trips 5 times a year, how is it possible? Yes or no? So the same person is purchasing tickets, but the same person is unable to pay minimum amount of taxes. Or a person is taking loan from X and rotating it to B bank. So in the way he's increasing the size of the loans. So all such fraudulent activities which a human eye misses, the algorithm will notice. Not a single penny will be misplaced. Yes or no? All those people who are actually making money but are not paying taxes will be easily identified by algorithms. So machine learning algorithms have a huge potential to make the taxation stress-free for government. Yes or no? And even your tax filings will become very easy. For example, if everything is linked to PAN card, every rupee you received, every rupee you spent, what is the saving, how much amount of tax has to be paid, everything will be ready-made by the algorithms. Yes or no? So the moment you go to the tax portal, it will tell you exactly this is the tax you have to pay. Yes, it will also show you how many donations you have given and how much tax you can save, deduct. So such is the power of algorithms. So algorithms can have the power to make democracies stronger, even in school education. Right now we have seen ASAR report and all those reports, right? So in the same way, if a government school is there, 30 students are there, subject wise their marks are entered. So it will tell you all these 3 people are weak in maths, these 3 people are weak in science. Automatically it will send the report to the parents or school teachers that you need to focus on those 3 for science. You need to focus on these 3 for maths. So tailor suited solutions will be provided to the students rather than mass learning. If someone is good in maths, what is the point in taking additional classes for maths for him? Yes or no? And in real time, government will know how many people are weak in maths in a particular school. If everybody is weak in maths, there is a problem with either the teacher or the students. Some patterns can be identified. Are we clear? Yes. Migrant labor's data can also be used by artificial intelligence. How many people are going to Kerala? Yes, the other day we were discussing the STEM portal article, artificial intelligence. So algorithms have huge potential to change a lot of things. But the thing is, it needs more accurate data. Right. This one. This one. This also ripple effect. Yeah. See, like for example, the particular company, let's say I'm listening to Spotify. Okay, so or some Amazon. Okay, so it has tagged me as a certain user. Okay, I don't want to be associated with that particular tag. So I should have the luxury to be removed from that particular tag. Yes. Because if I'm tagged under a particular criteria, the algorithm will treat me in the similar fashion and it will keep me recommending the same things. Yes or no? See, simple things like this. Your credit card data in America, wine consumption is a very common thing. Okay, if a particular family is consuming 6 wine bottles per month, okay, suddenly their consumption has come down to 3 bottles. The algorithm knows probably that someone in the family is either sick or pregnant. Okay, immediately it will start showing you baby ads, kid related ads, because you are pregnant. So that is the power of algorithm. It will identify the micro things which you may not even notice. For example, you are filling an online form. You are filling it for your friend, or you are filling it a fake. You hesitated 3 seconds before entering the date of birth. The algorithm will tag you as suspicious, because you should know your date of birth very quickly. You should normally people don't hesitate, right? Only when you don't want to give or you are giving a false identity, it will notice. So the microseconds are more than enough for the algorithm to identify there is something wrong about this particular individual. Yes, in the online examinations also in future will be based on algorithms. Yes or no? How quickly are you answering something, or how delayed is your response? Are you cheating? Yes or no? So in online interviews, it's a very common practice, right? Online interviews, cheating is a very common practice. Algorithms will make sure that you are unable to do so. It is helping the Chinese user. See, China government, the one thing about China government is this: it will do anti-populist measures. That means it will take a moral stand so high that it will tell whatever I'm doing is for your benefit. Okay, in the journey I'm destroying the MNC. So you will have more freedom. So the user here is getting more freedom, right? So the company cannot manipulate your data according to its wish. You will also be a partner in the company's manipulation. If you are so lazy that okay, associated with me a particular tag or you keep sending me the same ads, I don't have any problems. But if Amazon company saying you are being tagged under these criteria, for example, book lover, okay, or let's say perfume purchaser, some just example wise. So you don't want to be associated as a perfume purchaser, but as a book lover. So it's fine, but you should know where you stand in the eyes of Amazon in China, right? So that helps the citizens, not the company. See, again, why, let's say Zoom or I'm reading Kindle, right? If I'm reading Kindle in a Kindle, it will have the camera in future. Yes, it will know how much I'm enjoying a particular book. Okay, or how quickly I'm reading that book. Amazon algorithms will notice how quickly this person is moving from page number 1 to page number 2. The less the time he is taking, he's a good reader and he is enjoying the book. But I started a book, I closed it. After 1 week, I'm reopening it, I'm closing it. That means that algorithm will notice he's not liking this genre or this particular author. But I enjoyed one book of a particular author. Next time it will suggest me similar books. So the problem with algorithmic suggestion is you are reading more or less what everybody is reading. There is no diversity. Yes or no? You are being tailor suited by the company. The fun of life is randomness. Yes or no? Variety is the spice of life. Clear? So algorithms AI is a huge topic to understand. It's a very good essay topic also. Changing the agri export basket. What is this article about? Why is this important? This is important because of prelims. In prelims, the weightage for agriculture has suddenly increased. So they will ask you questions like, what is the export target of India? What is the target?
60 billion.
60 billion by 2022. So what are we exporting under agriculture?
We have exported basmati rice,
Hmm.
but these days other kinds of rice has increased, which implies diversification. Other products are being exported,
Okay.
but that is not enough to reach 60 billion, and we are exporting buffalo meat.
Hmm.
Uh,
So agricultural products normally wheat and rice, mostly rice. Horticulture, yes, spices, meat and processed food, poultry. All these things will come under agricultural exports. So India is also one of the largest exporter of meat. Yes. They are commercial crops, right? I mean, they are also technically under agriculture only. Commercial crops. Okay. Now, so even pulses and all those things are also considered as agriculture. Everything related to agriculture, even honey, apiculture. Edible oils, but we are importers of edible oils actually. Okay. Now, so what he is trying to tell you is agriculture imports is not a one size fit all solution. Every issue have its own problem. Most of the times food is not processed. Yes or no? Food processing industry in India is still in nascent stages. So that is why in GS paper 3 they have given you that particular term in syllabus copy, which is food processing. No, how many of you are carrying syllabus copies? Sir will beat one day if all of you realize, right? Yes, okay. Good for you. If you are still not carrying syllabus copies, apart from you, or in generally also, please do carry it all the time. Keep mugging up the keywords. Is there something called as food processing? Where?
yes.
Sure. What are the associated words?
So supply chain management. the scope of food processing industries.
Location, substream, and downstream requirements.
Location,
Upstream and downstream requirements.
location, upstream and downstream requirements, subsidies,
Supply chain management.
supply chain
Management.
management. So you can find all the terms in this particular article in one way or the other fashion. Yes or no? So that tells you that if you read this particular article, you need to know why you are reading it. First is GS paper 3, food processing industries. Most of the food produced in India is not converted into a processed food. Processed food has an advantage of larger shelf life. So you can store it, save it, and export it. And it will definitely guarantee certain amount of income for the farmers. Okay. And agriculture is not only basmati rice, spices, spice promotion. Yes or no? And the spillover effects. What happens when the agricultural basket is diversified? When agri baskets are diversified, think about MSP. Basmati rice or rice is produced because of MSPs. Punjab and all these areas are producing basmati rice only for exports. Okay, you do that, you continue that, but MSP should be slowly be withdrawn, or people should be given that freedom. If you are pumping so much amount of subsidies into rice and wheat, but all of that wheat is exported or rice is exported, then what is India getting out of this? Normal people are not eating basmati rice. We use it only for special occasions. Yes or no? We don't use it as a mainstream rice, only for biryani and all those things. So when diversification is happening, sustainable development is promoted, farmer income is doubled. Yes, more area is also coming under agriculture. For example, horticulture. If you go to Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, and all these places, which are rain-fed areas, which we need not need heavy water consumption, drip irrigation will do. But still, you are able to produce something which you can export. Farmer is happy. Water conservation, change in agricultural practices. Yes, and water guzzling crops like rice and sugarcane can be withdrawn. Yes or no? So you get the idea, right? And farmer is also getting that entrepreneurial skills. He is upscaling himself. So food processing industry have a lot of advantage. And spices are a very costly premium. Yes. Next is self-help groups will also be created. More women will come together and create self-help groups. That means I will produce spice, I will convert it into different powders or something that can also be marketed. Yes or no? So the more diversity that is there in the agri export basket, the more that is good for Indian agriculture and Indian farmers especially.
There is also the scheme of one district,
One product. Yes, one district, one product is also a very smart program to promote exports. Every district has a unique product, and that product can also be exported. And we have also have trains, domestic trains dedicatedly for moving these goods. So government is taking all these steps. So what is the way forward he is suggesting?
It should be ease of,
Hmm.
that is saying that how even
Hmm.
like, even if a little amount of spices are used in a product,
Hmm.
they are subjected to humongous checks and
Hmm.
that delays and deters the person. And he's also saying that there should be a continuous policy
Hmm.
that would encourage the investors a lot. But if the policy is too vague,
Hmm.
and he asked the topmost brands to come forward and do it as they can actually improve the exports.
See,
They are
ag-
reliable.
exactly. Again, that has to come from the trickle down theory, right? For example, American companies are very not to allow any other products because of their own competition, apart from the lack of hygiene or standard qualities. For example, in horticulture, you want to ripen the mango very quickly. You will throw some chemicals on it, it will ripen very quickly. So that is not a good export. If I call something as organic, from end to end, it should be organic. So that training should come from policy change, support from the system. Yes, self-help groups. You can take the help of all the self-help groups, maintain the best of the standards. Then that can be converted by the big companies using their supply chain mechanisms. Yes or no? So Ambani can tie up with all the self-help groups, but every self-help group should maintain the same standard. Then Ambani supply chain will reduce the cost. Yes or no? That is called as supply chain management. See, big companies are able to provide goods very cheaply because of the logistic management. Every rupee you save in the logistic is a benefit for the consumer. Yes or no? DMart, why is DMart so popular? Discounts are very high in comparison to any other company. So it's not cheap, it's efficient. Yes or no? I mean, you get the concept, right? They are managing the logistics very perfectly that they're able to give you the same product 10 rupees lower than any other competitor. So it's all about logistic management. So if we bring in the IKEA logistic management, DMart logistic management into agriculture, our exports will definitely increase or decrease? Increase. Yes or no? See, our packing can be sustainable. There is a honey called as honey. What is the specialty? The specialty is they will tell you in which particular area that honey is procured, and they have this talent to procure a honey from a dedicated plant, tulsi honey, neem honey. Okay, so they don't teach the honey bees. What they do is tulsi honey. In acres and acres of land, they grow only tulsi, and they will grow bees in that particular area. So bees will procure nectar only from tulsi plants. Okay, and they will use GIS technology. It is helping the farmer and the consumer to know exactly where that honey is procured, and they will keep the standards. If that honey is exported, automatically everybody will buy. Yes or no? That transfer of technology should happen to the everyone. So the same is for oranges. This is organic orange, where in this particular plot of Nagpur, you can check it. Government certification. Then automatically it's export worthy things. GA tax is a bit different. GA tax is value addition. GA tag means, see, for example, Bangenpalli mango. Okay, only in that particular area that taste is produced. Organic or inorganic is different, but the thing is, a item made in a particular area is like that. You get Madurai flowers. Yes, Madurai flowers are special in Madurai because of the climate, water, or whatever reasons, that plant flourishes there and it gives that unique smell and feel. If you go the same plant in your home also, it might look similar, but Madurai GI tag. So exports and imports can happen only from Madurai. So that area is clear. Okay. You get the idea? So agri exports has to definitely diversify, and it's good for everything. And as you can see in your syllabus copy, supply chain, food processing industry, forward and backward linkages will also improve. Any questions? No?
Particularly things like sugarcane is not environmentally sustainable because it takes a lot of water. And also recently with this oil plantation, edible oil plantation, so how do we balance this, like in terms of production and?
See, the first thing is sugarcane has become a political lobby. Both in Uttar Pradesh and Maharashtra, you cannot touch them because of the political cloud. Okay, no other reason is there. So slowly we have to move away from the political cloud. Only then the water guzzling crops like sugarcane will come down. Yes. Next, coming to edible oil import is, I mean, recently government has released COVID times, the prices have increased. So environment versus economy, the debate has happened. If I am dependent on outsiders, inflation will rise because we cannot cook anything without edible oils. So inflations might collapse government. So it's better to go for monoculture in the name of edible oil, that in select states, and destroy the environment rather than collapse the entire economy or governments. So these two are political considerations rather than national interests, in my understanding, because in Latin American countries, in South Asian countries, we have seen how these edible oil plants, palm oil trees, became monocultures, right? And they have destroyed planet like anything else. And if you see Latin American countries, banana plantations are monocultures, thousands and thousands acres of banana, nothing else, no diversity whatsoever. And one virus or one bacteria is more than enough to destroy all the 1,000 acres. And we are moving in that direction for edible oils. But because of our sheer size of the country, probably let's say Andhra and Telangana are going for edible oil production. The rest of the country might balance it out. So that's one way to look at the things. There is no logic and rhyme and rhythm for sugarcane or rice production. We don't need that much amount of rice. Yes,
Actually, a lot of
sugar
Western
cane.
countries they buy rice from Vietnam and all because they don't eat our polished rice.
Yes,
They
exactly.
prefer unpolished rice.
And now people are more moving towards brown rice. There are so many things, right? Okay. Any questions? No? Okay. So we'll take a break till 11:40. We will come back at 11:40. Please note, after 11:40, we'll discuss the mains papers.